platform to achieve message clarity and speaking confidence. Through preparation, teamwork, unconventional activities, and laughter-filled speaking, present powerfully in their personal and professional lives. We provide a performance platform to achieve message clarity and speaking confidence. Through preparation, teamwork, unconventional activities, and laughter-filled speaking experiences. Join us for our showcase of stories, speeches, and performance in their personal and professional lives. We provide a performance platform to achieve message clarity and speaking confidence. Through preparation, teamwork, unconventional activities, and laughter-filled speaking experiences. Join us for our showcase of stories, speeches, and performances, and find out how you can share your mind and heart and speak up your story. Present powerfully in their personal and professional lives. We provide a performance platform to achieve message clarity and speaking confidence. Through preparation, teamwork, unconventional activities, and laughter-filled speaking experiences. Join us for our showcase of stories, speeches, and performances, and find out how you can share your mind and heart and speak up your story. Speak Up Stories exists to empower others to present powerfully in their personal and professional lives. We provide a performance platform to achieve message clarity and speaking confidence. Through preparation, teamwork, unconventional activities, and laughter-filled speaking experiences. Join us for our showcase of stories, speeches, and performances, and find out how you can share your mind and heart and speak up your story. Speak Up Stories exists to empower others to present powerfully in their personal and professional lives. We provide a performance platform to achieve message clarity and speaking confidence. Through preparation, teamwork, unconventional activities, and laughter-filled speaking experiences. Join us for our showcase of stories, speeches, and performances, and find out how you can share your mind and heart and speak up your story. Speak Up Stories exists to empower others to present powerfully in their personal and professional lives. We provide a performance platform to achieve message clarity and speaking confidence. Through preparation, teamwork, unconventional activities, and laughter-filled speaking experiences. Join us for our showcase of stories, speeches, and performances, and find out how you can share your mind and heart and speak up your story.
Hi, my name is Eric Dominguez, and I am the owner and founder of Speak Up Stories. At the young age of 22, I started my career as a high school public speaking teacher and competitive speech and debate coach. We took a Bad News Bears style team and quickly transformed it into a perennial state and national championship program. My students developed speaking confidence, novelty, and power, performing in front of audiences from 3 to 3,000. Yet there was something that kept coming up that I couldn't shake. You see, their parents would come up to me, complimentary and in awe of their students' progress, and they would say something to the effect of, "Wow, I could never do what they do." It was something that I kept hearing over and over again, and it may cross your mind today. My students were exhibiting growth because they had multiple opportunities to speak in an environment that mixed professional rigor and high expectations with teamwork, unconventional activities, and lots of laughter. I realized that this type of training was not always available for the working professional. That lack of speaking confidence and ineffective presentational skills were often holding them back from their goals and their vision. But mostly, there were few places where people could stand up, speak their minds, hearts, and stories, and practice and showcase how they deliver a message. Speak Up Stories exist to provide this opportunity. The individuals you are about to watch spent the last 2 months in the Speak Easy Mastermind, rethinking what it means to prepare a public speaking and storytelling performance. They have overcome fears and anxieties. They have renewed clarity in their messaging, and they have amplified their speaking power, which you will see today. Aside from the traditional and untraditional training tactics, my favorite part of the entire process is the transformation that I see and the heart behind these stories. A group that began almost as strangers is now a group bonded in the teamwork experiences that we shared and a group ready to showcase their work for you today. So let's welcome our first speaker and our first story.
The paper that has the writing. You ready? Yeah. From the top or from where I left off? Well, I'm excited to announce that I've got the inside scoop on something you have maybe never heard about. Green Eggs and Ham, the sequel. In the original story, Sam I Am goes to great lengths to convince his buddy to try green eggs and ham. However, in the sequel, he's invited to a dinner party. Sam I Am arrives and he looks out at the table. Of course, there's green eggs and ham prepared. And he exclaims, "Oh, no thank you, guy I am," that's a friend's name, "for I only eat kale chips and jam." Throughout the rest of the dinner party, Sam I Am convinces everyone there to watch a very informative Netflix documentary and to consider being vegan. If you've never read this second story, it maybe was because it was never published. In fact, it would be pretty weird if the keto before it was cool guy suddenly changed his mind after 70 years of convincing the whole entire world to try green eggs and ham. I mean, can you imagine the backlash that Sam I Am would get on social media? However, we aren't that different from Sam I Am. Perhaps you know someone who has had a strong opinion and then changed their mind a little later. Maybe you know a pyramid scheme promoter that didn't work out, or the bandwagon politician who also has changed their mind. Perhaps you are someone who has shared an opinion and in the same breath contradicted yourself or changed your opinion completely. And that's okay, because changing the way we feel about something, it's uncomfortable. In fact, psychologists use the term cognitive dissonance to describe that uncomfortable feeling and personal awareness of holding conflicting beliefs. And it can be hard sometimes to disassociate ourselves from our beliefs. For example, a number of years ago, I walked into my high school classroom to find that the desks had been pushed to either side of the room. That day, we were given a discussion topic based on current and very divisive trends in media at the time. We were asked to choose a side and work with our classmates to encourage our classmates on the opposite side of the room while we were right. While I totally see why we are supposed to have assignments like this in classrooms and debate teams, I feel that we could have taken a step further. So that day, there were two main issues. One, there were only two sides of the story that we could choose from. We had to be either for or against each topic, but there were no other options. And very few things in life can be solved by flipping a coin. Secondly, no one switched sides that day. In fact, there was no rule against it, but there was a clear social pressure to stay on our side of the room and to support our own idea rather than to consider our classmates' perspectives and to learn from them. The problem is our perspectives are based entirely on when, where, and to whom we were born, and we can understand something and be completely ignorant of something just based on that. So I started to question, how much farther in life could we be if we all just set an expectation to reflect and think intuitively about new information as it comes to us? Why do we hold ourselves to the standard of our own opinion when we could constantly be questioning and learning and have a focus on curiosity? For example, when I was a little girl, I used to think that we could just solve all of the world's problems if we would just pick one, maybe language, religion, and culture. Let's just pick one and go with it. Okay, I promise, this concept it stemmed from a place of good intent. However, I know that it was ignorant. And our differences aren't as divisive as I thought when we were a little girl. I now know that it's those differences, our differences in language and religion and culture, that are going to be what allows us to grow as a society and to challenge our own world and our own ideas and to create a place where there are endless possibilities. Possibilities like eliminating political divides in our country and creating a place where diplomatic differences are set aside and we choose only the strongest and best leaders to guide our laws, economy, and uphold our civil and constitutional rights. Or possibilities of eliminating systems that give unfair advantages to some youth while being bad to the others. Getting rid of environmental factors that are unfair. And potentially having a place where green eggs and ham and kale chips and jam can be served at the same party. Thank you.
I am a journalist. I care about accuracy, facts, and the truth. So imagine my horror and surprise when I discovered I published fake news. Here is my confession. It was June, early. I was scrolling through my Facebook feed, checking out what my family and friends had been up to, and Facebook popped up a little milestone reminder for me. It turned out it was the 10th anniversary of a really sweet day. 10 years earlier, my husband and I had found out we were having a boy. Now, I am normally not a Facebook milestone sharer, but let's be honest that this year has kind of been a little scary and full of change and full of the unexpected. So I thought, I'm just going to inject a little dose of sunshine and celebration out into the world. I jotted a quick note, posted it, and went on about my day. Several hours later, something was wrong. My heart pounded. A stone of icy fear sat in my stomach. My phone had buzzed. Zzz, zzz, zzz. I had text messages coming in that were not expected. My email inbox had messages that meant something was amiss. People thought I was pregnant. And I'm saying it like that because there were lots of exclamation points in these messages. Like, congratulations! Wow! Whoa! And the scariest question of them all, when are you due? Most of the horror and the fear came from the fact my husband was at work, and he has 5 aunts and 3 sisters who are really kind of glued to Facebook all day. What if they saw the post and they thought I was pregnant, and then they called him and said congratulations to him? Can you say awkward? Well, like a good journalist, I decided it was time for a correction. I tried a clarification in the first post, but it wasn't doing the job. So I just did a full-on correction. And it was a new post. I put up a lovely picture of my son and me, and my son who's now 9 and clearly not in utero. And I wrote something to this effect. Friends, I am not expecting. All caps, exclamation point. Thank you for your comments and your notes, wishing us well. But there is no new addition coming to our family. The only addition I want is a mudroom. Thankfully, this seemed to calm everything down. I've heard nothing since. So why am I telling you this story? It's embarrassing. I created a fake pregnancy. That sounds like something from Days of Our Lives. But I'm bringing it up because I realized from that experience how easy it was to get something wrong as a writer and as a reader. And I should know better. We live in an age of misinformation, disinformation, and fake news. And it's easy to get caught up in that. And I want to point you to something that I think can cut through that. A strong local news community. Journalism. Strong journalism means a strong democracy. And in particular, I want you to think about your local news. When a local news community is strong and vibrant, this is what happens. More voters vote. More candidates run for office, which means there are more ideas presented for solutions to issues that are in our communities. It means fewer taxpayer dollars are being misspent. It means your tax rate is probably lower because someone's at a meeting and asking why public officials need to borrow a ginormous amount of money for a public project. It means there's less corruption. in the business community, the overall community, government, nonprofits, whatever you want. Overall, it helps your local economy. And there are studies that back this up, but I'm not going to spend a lot of time attributing all of those sources. So this is what local news can do for your community to build it up. And I know that there's not always a lot of trust in the news. In fact, just this last week, Night Gallup, because I do believe in accuracy, issued a new study, and it said that right now, fewer and fewer people have trust in their news outlets. And that's not a big surprise because some of that is well-deserved. I will admit that. I mean, I created a fake pregnancy. However, that study also said that Americans right now are craving more accurate information. Well, I believe that journalism done well and ethically gets you there. But here's some news for you. And when I tell people this, they're usually pretty surprised. Your local news is probably not doing so well. In the last decade, 1 in 5 newspapers in the United States has disappeared. Just this year, 11,000 newsroom jobs are gone. So that's happening in Iowa. It's probably happening in your community. And luckily in Iowa, we do not have any news desert so far. And that would be no local news outlet. We're fortunate, but we're not probably very far away from that. So what can you do? My challenge to you is to take 600 to 900 seconds of your day and commit to reading, listening, or watching local news. Choose one, choose several, even better. By doing that, you're supporting them. If you're motivated enough, subscribe or donate to one of those nonprofit news organizations. This is how you can support your community, not just local news, but your community because you're becoming an informed citizen. Strong journalism equals a stronger democracy. I happen to be a journalist, as I said, and these days I'm working for a scrappy little investigative news nonprofit called Iowa Watch. But I've been doing this for 25 years. And I can tell you there's never been a greater time when I see information and facts and accuracy and truth needed. So I've challenged you. And now you might be wondering, does this really work? Well, here's an example. Back in the mid-2000s, let's say 2007, 2008, I worked at the Des Moines Register at that time, and there was this little state agency that no one had really ever heard anything about before. By its acronym, it was called CTEC. Its long name was the Central Iowa Employment and Training Consortium. That just rolls right off the tongue. Well, what was happening at CTEC was the chief executive was using federal public taxpayer dollars to pay some really exorbitant salaries and bonuses for her team, her staff. Some days they didn't show up for work. There were also some inappropriate relationships going on between that chief executive and a member of the board of directors. There were a lot of stories that came out about this. Journalists asked the questions. Journalists went to the meetings that were being held. Journalists went to the hearings that happened at the State House as a result, and eventually to the court proceedings. Journalists did the work of democracy for you, so you didn't have to attend or go to any of those things. Now, what happened? Well, I have to conclude the story. That chief executive ended up pleading guilty to fraud, and I believe is still in prison. Getting back to 600 to 900 seconds a day. That's about how long I've been speaking, and it's maybe 3 or 4 commercial breaks in any show that you watch on network television or a cable network. So that's not that much time. Commit to it, build up your community, save democracy. Happy reading.
I love a good bike ride. When I need to recharge my batteries after a long week, I ride my bike. I dig in the garden and curl up with a good book too, but I love a good bike ride. I'm a teacher, and my students make up a wide variety of racial and ethnic groups. They are a variety of ages and genders, socioeconomic backgrounds. My students are teachers to be. In the very near future, they will be in K-12 classrooms across the country working with an incredibly diverse population of children. One of the key components in all of my classes is community building. We study theories and we practice building relationships with one another ad nauseum. In essence, I'm banking on the ripple effect of powerful relationships to address the unequal, unequitable, racist curriculum that happens in schools. You could say that my work life is like a bike ride. It's fairly comfortable, fairly predictable, with relatively few obstacles. I joined the baby boomers bike ride at the very tail end when I was born in a middle-class family in a homogeneous community in Iowa. During my first decade of life, Sam Cooke sang, "A change is gonna come," and was shot. Cynthia Wesley, Carol Robertson, Addie Mae Collins, Denise McNair, children killed in a church bombing. Malcolm X, Martin Luther King Jr., Medgar Evers, African-American civil rights leaders assassinated. The Civil Rights Act, 1964, passed. The Voting Rights Act, 1965, passed. The Fair Housing Act, 1968, passed. John Carlos and Tommie Smith stood atop the Olympic podium in 1968 and proudly gave the Black Power salute for all the world to see. Change came. The movement ended. Civil rights achieved. Really? Fast forward to the 21st century. Trayvon Martin, Black Lives Matter, school to prison pipeline, Michael Brown, Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, George Floyd. My twin cities explode, and the killing continues. Why haven't we changed? I wonder. I wonder if the we who look like me haven't felt a need to change, haven't known what to change, haven't known how to change, haven't wanted to change. Ibram Kendi, researcher and author of How to Be an Anti-Racist, is helping me think differently about the concept of change. One of the key components that Kendi brings forward is the fact that not a racist does not exist. Categories are racist and anti-racist. And all human beings are capable of actions from each. Kendi encourages us, he asks us to strive intentionally toward anti-racist work. By that, what he means is systems. Change, replace systems whose formal and informal policies are intentionally designed to make people of color feel less than or inferior to white people. It feels to me like in this time and this place, white America is being urged, compelled to step on an anti-racist path and ride. Up until this point in time, my ripple effect of powerful relationships to deal with racism focused on people. People are not the work. People do anti-racist work on systems. So at 58, I begin a new bike ride to recharge my batteries differently. A ride from being a kind and caring racist to an awkward anti-racist under construction. And my journey is unfolding as I stand here and speak today. My summer reading has included White Privilege by Robin DiAngelo, I'm Still Here by Austin Channing Brown, Stamped by Jason Reynolds and Ibram Kendi, To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee, Challenging the Classics by Alana Masad. I am overwhelmed. My fight, flight, or freeze instincts have been on high alert, and I'm telling you, freeze has been winning. And then a few weeks ago, I heard a podcast with Brene Brown, and I heard her encourage white people to stay vulnerable, stay awkward as we work to get this right, not be right. And then I thought, I'm a social studies teacher. I'm a teacher of teachers. Curriculum. Curriculum is my anti-racist work. That's my path. I've made changes already for fall semester in the books we're reading, the discussions we're going to have. Minnesota is getting ready to go through a revision of the social studies standards. My students are going to be right there front and center giving feedback. Our goal, equal representation, authentic representation of all people across the curriculum. Obstacles. Every journey has obstacles. There will be obstacles in the form of people and terrain. There will be people riding hard and fast, people who are wobbly and slow, people going in the opposite direction of me, people who are heading straight on or blowing through intersections and not giving any warning. There will be hills and valleys and hairpin turns, loose gravel, smooth asphalt, potholes, sand, glass. It's time. It's time for me to be awkward and vulnerable in my classrooms with my students so they see what awkward and vulnerable looks like and hear what it feels like. Curriculum's not your thing? No worries. We got plenty of choices for you. Let's see. Census counting, districting, educational funding, healthcare, hiring practices, housing, immigration, incarceration, mass transportation, mental health, neighborhood zoning, network opportunities, policing, sentencing laws, voter suppression, wrongful convictions. Pick a path. Get on a path. Keep on the path. It feels like this time a change is going to come. Let's ride.
It is said that you should not judge a book by its cover. But reading the back of the book, you can get a lot of information. Here are a few things that you would find in my summary. I'm the mother of 2 children who have become 2 amazing adults. I take care of my elderly parents whenever I can. I'm getting ready to start my 35th year in education. I have taught everything from kindergarten to 8th grade English. And this year I'll be starting my 4th year as an instructional coach. I like to sew, knit, crochet, garden, and read. I bake for the bake sales. I collect food for the food drives. I donate blood. I volunteer in any way that I can. See, there's a lot about me that most people would find standard, ordinary. We're a pretty typical family. And on first impressions, I appear to be a pretty ordinary person. But I found out that I am part of an elite group of people. And I found this out on a Friday night football game about 10 years ago. Now, I am not into football, but I love a good marching band. And this Friday night was special because it was the all-city band night. This is where all the students from 5th grade to 12th grade that play in the band take the field and they play a couple of songs. It's the same songs every year, but it's a tradition. This Friday was especially important because my son and my daughter were going to participate. The first half of the game was going great. The stands were packed. The concession stand was making a killing. Kids were running all around. And principals were trying to control the kids. And that was like herding cats or kindergartners. Finally, it was time to take the field. The band took the field and played a couple of songs. They played the school fight song. Everyone in the stands stood and clapped along. The cheerleaders did the routine. It was the epitome of Friday night in a small town, Iowa. After the game, I met up with my kids. They wanted to stay at the game to join the clutter of cats. My son asked me if I would take his trombone home with me because he didn't want to carry it around. I wanted to take the trombone home because I hadn't finished paying it off. As I was walking down the street to my car, in the next intersection, there was a crowd of people. And I heard yelling and swearing. I heard a baby cry and a woman scream. And just like everyone else, I wanted to see what was happening. So when I got to the crowd, I pushed my way forward. And inside the circle, 2 men were fighting. They were about in their 30s, but one man, he was like 6'5", and the other was under 6 foot. And they were throwing punches like it was a boxing ring. Suddenly, the big man, he knocked the other guy to the ground and jumped on him and pinned his arms. He took his massive hands and he wrapped him around his throat, choking him. I had only seen this on TV, and it was really, really scary. The man on the ground was trying to use his legs to throw the heavy load off, and he couldn't. And as I stood there watching, his legs stopped thrashing. I looked at his face. His eyes were rolling back into his head. The crowd was yelling and screaming, but my world went silent. I took the trombone and I set it at a bystander's feet. Trombones are expensive. And then I turned to the pair. There was a woman holding a baby trying to pull the man off and couldn't, and no one was helping her. So I caught eye contact with someone in the crowd and I said, "Call 911." And then I turned to the pair, and the man who was kneeling was almost as tall as me. And I said, "Stop it." He didn't hear me, so I got up closer and I said, "Get off of him. You're killing him." Nothing. I tried, "The police are on their way." Still nothing. I looked at the man on the ground. His eyes were fluttering, and his lips were turning blue. I had to do something. And so I took a step back and pow! I body slammed that monster. I must have hit him just right because he went sprawling. I stood between the fighters. The big man, he got up and looked at me in confusion. I said, "You hear that? They're almost here." He turned and ran off. The man on the ground was breathing and somebody was helping him up. And by the time the police got there, almost everyone was gone. The few of us that remained told the police what we knew, and that was it. So why was I the one to step in? Why didn't I fear for my safety? As I was retelling this story to a friend, they told me about a theory that was created by Dr. Leach. It's called the 10-80-10 theory. It was developed a long time ago to explain human behavior in greater detail. It's used today in everything from first responder training to leadership to coaching sports. And it goes like this. When you have a big problem or find yourself in a crisis situation, 10% of the people fall into counterproductive activity. They kind of just freak out. They get in the way of anything happening. This is kind of like the people in the movies that get slapped to snap them out of it. 80% of people become bewildered. In a crisis situation, the brain searches the memory bank for a solution, and when finding none, will freeze, sometimes freezing the whole body. Kind of like the stereotypical ostrich with its head his head in the sand. The last 10%, Dr. Leach calls the survivors. These are the people that set aside emotions. They make a plan, they look at the situation, and then they act. So, what group would you put yourself in? Dr. Leach goes on to say that there are things we can do to make sure that we are not the person getting slapped or the ostrich. First, we have to practice optimistic realism or realistic optimism. Anyway, it's what we call have a growth mindset today. It's the belief that all life's problems have a solution. You just haven't found it yet. The second thing is to look at the big picture. Look at the problem from all sides. First responders get a lot of training in this area. And the last thing is to breathe. Taking a deep breath will help you gain your composure and give your brain a chance to find a solution. So, when you find yourself having a big problem or in a crisis situation, breathe, take a look at the situation from all sides, tell yourself there is a solution, and then pow. So Monday morning, I'm at school and I'm in the hallway greeting my students. And this young man came up to me and said, "Nice body slam." I just shrugged my shoulders and smiled. See? First impressions can fool you.
About a year ago, I was having coffee with another woman, and as we chatted, our conversation got around to our children. Like me, she had a son and a daughter. And she started talking about her daughter who was in college, and she was saying that she wanted to raise her to be strong, to be independent, so she wouldn't need a man. Now, I've heard that phrase many times before. I've said that phrase many times before. But in that day, for some reason, that phrase stopped me in my tracks, like only something that's challenged your long-held belief. And I said to her, mostly to myself, why do we still say that? She said, say what? I said, why do we still say and tell our daughters to go to school, to be successful, so we don't need a man? And she said, well, I want her to be strong and independent. And I said, I get that. But you have a son too, right? She said, yes. I said, well, what do we tell them? To find work that they enjoy, find love, be happy? She agreed, yes. Well, why can't we just say that to our daughters? In the days to come, I kept thinking about that conversation. Why do we still feel the need to say, I don't need a man? I mean, I get why our mothers did it to begin with. The idea of not needing a man was originally meant to be a motivating, empowering message to women to get them to think about being financially independent so they'd never feel stuck in a bad relationship. It was meant to break us out of a stereotype so we'd know that we had more options in our life than just to be a homemaker. But in the last 10 to 15 years, it's become like it's expanded to dismiss men altogether. Now, when a woman says, I don't need a man, she means she doesn't need him for anything. Not financially or emotionally. Now, if you're not needing them financially or emotionally, then what are they going to be good for? You know, I often hear women say that, I'm good, I don't need a man, I've got my work, I've got my friends, I've got my dog. Now, I get that not everybody needs a deep romantic partnership to be happy, but it's like we would be betraying the sisterhood if we admitted publicly that we had a need for a man. Last year, I was reading a book that was entitled, If I'm So Wonderful, Why Am I Still Single? In it, the author talks about the self-help and the personal development movement that started in the 60s. She said that singles today are no longer challenged by self-sufficiency. It's connection that challenges them. It's like they are so busy proving to everyone that they are self-sufficient that they have forgotten that autonomy is only half of a balanced life. The other half, being intimacy, has been neglected. She goes on to say that in the decades to come, it will be one of our cultural tasks to restore the balance in our hierarchy of needs to our normal cultural values and human needs. Now, I thought those were some pretty powerful points that she made, but the thing that really got me was that that book was written in 1988. That's 32 years ago. When it comes to relationships between men and women, we're not getting better, we're getting worse. It's like we've become a boat with one oar and we're going around in circles. And we're abdicating one of the most basic, important human needs, the need for love. And who do you think is paying the price for this? The emotional price? Heterosexual women. and men. Now, I get, ladies, that you want more from men, and I'm not suggesting that we go backwards or stand still or put up with rude or improper behavior at all. But I can't believe that telling men that they're not needed and they're disposable is going to motivate them to change. You see, since the beginning of time, it's been men's purpose in the world to protect and provide their country, their communities, their families. They were taught that there was honor in going to war, and in the long hours of work and the oftentimes dangerous jobs that they did. They were taught to be tough and strong and to not show emotion. But today, we make fun of them in sitcoms. It used to be I Love Lucy. Now it's Everybody Loves Raymond or A Man with a Plan. It's even considered by many to be a win for a woman to have and raise a child on her own. Men today are oftentimes regarded as disposable, untrustworthy, and vaguely dangerous. It's become all too common to hear about college men that are dropping out and living in their parents' basements. They spend their days playing video games and they work at menial jobs. They don't fit the traditional role of men. They're angry and depressed, and they're addicted to video games, porn, and drugs. They're often thought of as being lazy, entitled losers. But what if they're not? I believe that we as women have a unique opportunity at this time in history. I believe that we have the ability to start to bring us back from he and she to form a powerful we. I mean, consider how powerful we are. Did you know that in this country that women control the majority of personal wealth? We hold the majority of college degrees and graduate degrees. And for the first time in history, there are more women in the workforce than there are men. I think we've broken that stereotype. I think we've crushed it, actually. This balance of power isn't showing up just in work, it's also showing up in the spiritual communities. In 2009, at the Vancouver Peace Summit, the Dalai Lama proclaimed that the Western woman will save the world. He was so impressed with the amount of compassion that women showed in their projects. And he also said that he believed that women with their natural nurturing instincts are just naturally more compassionate. I have to agree. I think women have tremendous compassion. We have compassion for women, for children, for animals, for the environment, for the sick, the poor, the homeless, all very, very worthy causes. We have huge compassion for everything, except for when it comes to men. As we move forward into more and more positions of influence, I ask you to be intentional about what we're leading, about what we're creating. To remember that you can't build a strong society by disempowering half of the population. We didn't like it, and neither do they. Maybe it's time for a change. You know, need is not a bad four-letter word. As we move forward, maybe it's time to move out of extreme self-sufficiency. Maybe it's time to take on the challenge of leadership in vulnerability and intimacy. After all, love is natural and healthy and beautiful. And I think we could all agree that the current pandemic has really kind of highlighted our need for human connection. Maybe, just maybe, it's time for us to stop measuring our level of success and independence by not needing a man. Maybe it's time to start teaching our daughters how to have a partnership with a man rather than raising him to not need him. Maybe it's time to stop blaming each other and for all of us to figure out and to learn what it feels like to feel needed and have someone need you in return. to learn to create a loving, open relationship that empowers both of us. I invite you to get curious about why we still say, I don't need a man. What purpose does it serve? And if men's purpose is to protect and provide, what has the impact been of telling them for decades that they're not needed and they're disposable? I hope you'll join me in changing the direction of relationships between men and women. Moving in a new direction, a more powerful direction, by putting 2 oars back on that relationship boat. It's time to move from independence to interdependence. It really is up to you, ladies, because you see, you've had the power all along.
I am adopted. And for most of my life, that identity of being adopted meant the total inability to know who I was, what I wanted, where I came from, or even what my purpose was. It left me in a total state of victim mode, playing off my fear of abandonment. So because of this disconnection, I sought out connection in many different forms. So as a kid, this looked like extreme overachieving, high-performing perfectionism, and like a total dismissal of any negative emotions because I was, love me, please don't leave. As an adult, the stakes got a little bit higher. Connection came in the form of drugs, alcohol, sex, many failed relationships, and a totally unfulfilling career. But here's what took me 35 years to figure out. I had every tool I needed to find my way back to myself. And you do too. We are living, walking, breathing roadmaps. And you have the compass to find your way back to yourself. So just breathe. So let me back this up just a little bit. 2 years ago, prompted by a sale, I purchased a 23andMe test. I was super curious about my genetic health history because it was always just a big question mark. When I took that test, I had no idea that I would get way more than just clarity on my health history. The test revealed a potential first match. And initially, I just shrugged. I honestly didn't know if it was a path I wanted to follow, but after a weekend of binge drinking and questionable decisions, something that had unfortunately become like super commonplace in my life, there was a voice. And the voice was telling me to follow that breadcrumb. So I reached out. And an hour later, that cousin reached back out to me. And later that evening, we were having a conversation. She knew who my biological dad was. He still talked to my biological mom, and they both lived like 3 hours from me. He was ready for me to call him. Wow. Just breathe, right? Remember to breathe. So after many long conversations with both my biological mother and father, I decided I was going to meet them. And I had no idea that at that point, this would be the turning point, right? My bio dad is an alluring and slightly tormented soul. He loves motorcycles, he's an artist, and he is super unusual but has an extreme amount of depth. My bio mom is charismatic. She's magnetic. She's completely oblivious to the power she holds And she creates this like swirling vortex, like pulling people in with her beautiful, albeit messy, love. There were other characteristics I shared with my 4 bio half-siblings as well. Everyone was super social, very creative. Everyone loved music. Everyone liked to connect, talk, opinionated, unique, right? But I also noticed another thing we all shared in common. We all really liked to drink and smoke. And this was like the first time in my life that I had mirrors. I had people that like looked like me and acted like me, talked like me, and they were coping like me too. And I didn't want to do that anymore. And I knew I had to take action soon. So this was truly like the crossroads in a 4-year journey to finding myself. So like 4 years earlier, I started a yoga practice. I took a beginner yoga series and I learned the poses, right? In 2016, I experienced extreme stress, chronic stress, which manifested physically. So I really learned the tie between mind and body. 2018 was like, this was the year. I left a relationship. I hired a life coach. I started and committed to a daily meditation practice, took that freaking 23andMe test, met my biological family, and I flirted with and then actually committed to being alcohol-free, still alcohol-free. 2019, though, I was totally ready to quit more than just my habits. I was ready to quit that unfulfilling career. I was going to quit my job. I was going to go to India for a yoga training, and then I was just going to see what happened after that. But it would be there, in the Himalayan foothills in Rishikesh, India, where I connected with that compass, where I found my breath. So, breath work, right? It's like a totally vague term used to describe any form of breathing practices or techniques. In India, I learned yogic pranayama. So let's break that down. Pranayama, prana meaning your life force energy, yama meaning to tune or align. So you're literally aligning your energy with your like optimal way of being, how you're naturally supposed to move through the world. It's beautiful. Prana is energy. It's like the essence of you. It's what makes you unique. It's your vitality, your inspiration, your motivation, drive. It is literally everything, and there's an infinite supply. You can't run out. So we can have all sorts of like profound and like magnetic effects with the breath, and we do that by forming a bridge of communication. The breath, right, communicates from the body to the mind and back again. So most of the population is actually breathing from the upper portion of their chest. This is shallow breathing. You're not accessing the full capacity. So what does this do? When you're only breathing from the top portion of your chest, you're actually sending signals to the body that there's a stressor involved. Your heart rate will increase, your blood pressure will also increase. But then think about how you feel, what thoughts are going through your head. Might feel a little chaotic, a little stressed, a little anxious. The mind-body connection. So if we can like consciously slow the breath down, we send more messages, right? We tell the heart rate and blood pressure to lower, which in turn sends messages to the mind that you are safe, right? There's no need to freak out in this moment. So let's try it here, okay? Close your eyes, no matter where you are, and just bring your awareness to the breath. Just watch the breath as it enters you through the nose and it exits through the nose. And don't control it, just watch it. Notice how it moves through you. Notice where you might be breathing from. Are you breathing in the top portion of your chest? Or are you now naturally breathing a little bit deeper? Does this awareness help you self-regulate? So you're still breathing here with your eyes closed. Let's access our full lung capacity, right? Our life capacity. So as you inhale through your nose, expand your belly first, then your ribs, then your chest. This allows us to access all of the lung capacity, all of your life capacity. And exhale the same way. Belly, ribs, chest. Contract the belly slightly, push the air out. Take a few rounds here. Notice how the breath naturally regulates, naturally slows down, it naturally balances. You can open your eyes now. How do you feel? Do you feel a little bit different? I'm sure you feel a little bit different, right? That's fucking empowering. Like, it allows us to change our state, our energetic state, by using a tool we have built in. We don't need anything outside of ourselves. So you might be asking, like, why do we want to do it? How does this affect my quality of life? What changes can happen with breath work? So when I was in India, I realized that I had been dealing with pretty severe energetic imbalances my entire life. When I was tired, I would reach for caffeine. When I was sad, I would reach for alcohol. When I was lonely, sex. I was constantly looking for something outside of myself to connect me back to myself. What this did is it just kept the hole there, and the hole kept getting bigger. So when I was empowered enough to realize I had my own tools, things started to change. So really, the gist of this is that I have cleared enough of society's shit through breathing that I can now finally see, right? I'm utilizing my compass. My compass, my breath. My breath allows me to stay present. Staying present allows me to be self-aware. Being self-aware allows me to deeply connect with my intuition. And when that happens, I can truly see. I see my limitless potential, my greatness. And you can too. Just breathe.
It was spring of 2015, and life was pretty sweet. My husband and I were living in sunny Los Angeles, California. We had 2 boys, a 3-year-old and an almost 1-year-old. I was working as a marketing director for Procter & Gamble in the beauty business, my dream job. And we lived in a house with a 2-car garage and a swimming pool. Life was pretty much going as planned. One morning, I was heading out to a company meeting. I had a little bit of extra time, so I decided to take the canyons. Now, the canyons are a road that runs through the Santa Monica Mountains and then connects with the Pacific Coast Highway in Malibu. Mountain views, ocean views, the drive does not suck. So there I am, driving, listening to talk radio, and a story comes on about a man who had lived several years in a coma, but yet he could hear everything. Words, music, movement, everything. He eventually came out of his coma, but was deeply hurt by the words that some of his caretakers and even his own mother had used. They talked about what a burden he was. That really tugged at my heart. And as I continued to listen to the story unfold, my hands started to go numb. This is weird, I thought. I start to rub them. But you know what? My mom has carpal tunnel, so I'm sure it's just that. But then the numbness starts to spread up my arms. And then my legs. So here I am, rubbing my hands, trying to shake out my legs, while simultaneously trying not to drive off a cliff. After what seems like hours, I finally make it down to the Pacific Coast Highway, I see the ocean, and it instantly calms me. Just keep moving, I whisper to myself. Just keep moving. And I do, and the rest of the day is fine, and I forgot all about what happened. At the end of the day, I climbed back into my car, and this time I head towards home, but this time taking the freeway, the 405. Now, if you don't know the 405 is a 12 to 14 lane freeway that goes through Los Angeles, and it's always awful. But during rush hour, it is pure hell. It's awful. It's terrible, terrible. So there I am, about probably 30, 40 minutes into the drive. The sun set, and now it's fully dark, except for bright red taillights. Everywhere I look, bright red taillights, my left, my right, as far as the horizon goes. And all of a sudden, my hands start to go to sleep again. And then my arms, and then my legs. I turn down the radio so I can focus. Everything is so loud now. The cars inching beside me are so loud. The sound of my breathing is so loud. My heart beating is so loud. I start to get a high-pitched ringing in my ear that is absolutely debilitating. And then I can't see. I'm like a horse with blinders on, black on the left and the right, and closing in quickly. Pull over now, my brain tells me. I'm in trouble. And as fast as a human can, who is, seeing and hearing impaired at this time, somehow I managed to do that. I exit off Sunset Boulevard, I call 911, and I bust into tears. In a matter of moments, the paramedics arrive, and at this point, I'm convinced that I've probably just had a heart attack or a stroke. But no, the paramedics tell me, "Ma'am, we think you've just had a panic attack." So now I stop crying from fear, and now I'm crying from embarrassment. Are you kidding me? People like me don't have panic attacks. I'm a super boss, I'm a super mom, and I'm a super wife. I can do it all. But sure enough, a week later, my doctor diagnosed me with anxiety, and my blood work came back severely deficient in key vitamins. I felt like a teenager who had gotten pulled over for the first time speeding. I was forced to think about what I had done. I had lost myself. I was traveling so hard and so fast, wanting to do it all, wanting to be the best, married to achievement, that I was completely exhausted, physically, emotionally, depleted of everything. Over the next couple of months, I really looked inside myself and worked with a lot of doctors to realign and take care of myself. My nutrition, my sleep, exercise, drinking water, the basics, I also started meditating. Meditating had so many benefits, but for me, it was really just the permission to be still. Stillness was not in my type A vocabulary. And it was in these still moments that I finally asked myself the tough questions, like, why are you moving so hard and so fast? What are you running towards? And why do you have everything on paper, but yet you still feel numb? Eventually, I found the courage to finally respond to my own questions and make some life choices. In spring of 2016, about a year later, my husband and I decided to move home to Iowa. We wanted to be closer to family, to raise our young family, and just overall have a slower pace of life. We thought, this is perfect. And my company offered me the opportunity to work remotely, so win-win. So this is the part in the story where I tell you that we moved back to Iowa and we lived happily ever after. But life had other plans. About 5 months after we moved home, my mother-in-law passed away unexpectedly. She was our biggest cheerleader to move home. 2 months later, we moved in my 2 nephews, ages 13 and 14, into our home because their mother, my sister, was not doing well. 7 months later, my dear sister passed away at the young age of 35. A week later, we entered into a year-long legal battle trying to ensure that we could keep my nephews together, living with us. A couple months later, I took a step down from my role as a director. I had to do something to figure out everything that was going on, but to me, it felt like another devastating blow. My career was the last thing at this point that I had left to my old life. It felt like a tornado had came into my life, picked everything up, twirled it around, and spewed the content all over. I was angry. I was sad. I was grieving. I was guilty. None of this was in the plan. They say in life that there are no shortcuts to grief or trauma. Just like a tunnel in a mountainside, you can't go under, you can't go over, and you can't go around. As dark and scary as that tunnel is, you must go through, inch by inch, mile by mile. It took a lot of time and a lot of tears to finally start working my way through that tunnel. I tried as best as I could to take care of myself because I knew all too well what would happen, if I did not. I also asked for a lot of help. At first a little, and then a lot, until I just finally leaned into the discomfort of everything. Brené Brown says that vulnerability is the birthplace of innovation, creativity, and change. And Brené Brown is always right. The real pivotal point in my healing, though, came about 6 months, maybe 8 months, I don't know, it was a blur, after my sister had passed away. I was laying on the couch, feeling completely overwhelmed and depleted. I started scrolling through pictures, and I came across pictures that I had taken in the most recent months. And to my surprise, there were smiling, bright faces staring back at me. I was shocked, like I was seeing these faces for the first time. But it was true. I was either stuck in the past, mourning it, or trying to figure out what this all meant for my future to truly be present and appreciate these moments. I decided to change that. The next day, I started a practice that I now refer to as Instagrata. Daily, I capture moments of gratitude and I post them to my memory. I literally stop, inhale, and take in everything around me. One of my favorite Instagrata moments is family movie night. My 6-year-old is so energetic and rambunctious, but during family movie night, he likes to sit on my lap and snuggle with me. I feel the warmth of his little body, his hair tickling my chin, the smell of the popcorn in the room, the ambiance of the dim lights, and I just take in what it feels like at this moment in time. It's been 5 years since my first anxiety attack, 4 years since moving back to Iowa, and 3 years since loved ones have passed. My family and I, we have built a new chapter. A chapter that is messy and unpredictable and really stinky with all the boys, but it is perfectly imperfect. The journey has not been easy, but the journey has been worthwhile. Amidst all the chaos, I found acceptance. Amidst the vulnerability, I found strength. And amidst the darkest times, I found moments of light. My life used to look like a series of titles, trophies, and achievements hanging on the wall, not fully reflective of the true me. Now my life looks like a collection of moments of gratitude, instagrata, that remind me to be present and that I am exactly where I need to be right here, right now.
Well, I wouldn't do it, he said. I'm not asking if you would do it, I said. What I'm asking is if you think I can do it. That was a conversation I had in February of 2013 with my brother, my friend and buddy, my confidant, my trusted advisor. I was talking to him about the idea of making a midlife career change and building a business as a financial advisor. We talked through the details, what it would take. And at the end of the conversation, he said to me, well, of course you can do it if you want to. 30 days later, I was in his office in White Bear Lake, Minnesota. He was CFO for Towsley Ford, one of the nation's largest and most profitable Ford dealerships. He had a big office, and in that office, he had 4 big, beautiful pictures of barns. There was one for every season. I sat across from him at his desk, and he leaned in and he said, Stace, it's serious. We don't know what it is. It's one of 3 things, and none of them are good. If I don't make it, he continued to say in his pragmatic and practical voice, trying to convince me that everyone and everything would be fine without him. I spent the next 6 months studying for my Series 7 and 65 financial exams, while he spent the next 6 months having chemo once every 3 weeks. He always scheduled chemo on Fridays because it meant that he would miss the least amount. I was with him for every treatment except for one, and those Fridays were made a little bit lighter with Wendy's cheeseburgers and French fries for lunch, the simple solace of being together, and his occasional practical joke on his nurses. Soon after his chemo ended, I joined my new firm, started my business, and he and I would talk almost every Friday. Our calls would be prompted by a text that I would get from him, and it would include a picture of his favorite Friday treat, which was a cup of Starbucks coffee and a donut. But not just any donut, it was always a sprinkled donut. We would tell stories from the week, and he knew my business was small and I wasn't making a lot of money. So he would tease me and he would say, ooh, Stace, are you gonna get cheese on your pizza next time you order? We would laugh, and he would always end the conversation with, now go shear a sheep. And that was his way of wishing me well. The chemotherapy worked, which meant he went into remission, and he qualified for a stem cell transplant using his own stem cells. He resided in Rochester, Minnesota, under the wonderful care of Mayo Clinic physicians and nurses, and the love of family and many friends. I would see him almost every weekend. Sometimes our conversations would just be sitting quietly together. Other times we would talk about family or friends or his business or mine. The stem cell process worked too for a while. We all knew there was no cure to the mantle cell lymphoma. We hoped for 10 to 12 years. We got 3. He actually died on my 51st birthday. And as soon as it happened, I just said to myself, well, this will be the annual reminder that I had the best brother ever. The day of his death wasn't actually the worst day of my life. It was the day of his funeral. And I've chosen not to call it the worst day of my life anymore, but it is certainly the least favorite. On that day, I learned what it means to wail. I found myself after the service standing outside of the church, after watching his dearest friends lift his casket into what was actually a very beautiful white hearse. And I watched that hearse pull away, and I was standing there by myself using the favorite shared nickname we had, which was Spanky. And I was saying, Spanky, don't go, please, don't go, over and over and over again. But there was a beautiful gift from that day, too. The funeral was well attended, and the pastor, Pastor Neil, did a lovely job of telling stories about my brother. Everybody in the room that day knew him better after that service. One of my favorite stories is about food, which was a shared family love. He was a wonderful cook, but he also enjoyed a nice dining experience. He loved the ambiance, the gourmet food, and the wonderful conversation, usually with his wife. And if they saw a younger couple out that evening enjoying a similar experience, he would secretly get up from the table and anonymously pay for their dinner, just because he thought it would give them a leg up and put a smile on their face. Pastor Neil told of Steve's signature wave. If you met him around town in his Ford pickup, he would have his right hand on the steering wheel and his left arm hanging out the window, and he would give you that little nod and that finger shake. He told stories of Steve helping people in big and small ways, expected, unexpected, physical, and emotional. The stories he told of his drive, his intelligence, his generosity, his humility, his down-to-earth approach to life, and his wit, his love for his family, his wife, his daughter, me, his family, his friends. The most beautiful gift from that day was that at the end of the service, I felt like everybody in that room had a relationship with him in which they trusted him, like I trusted him for 51 years. And I like to think that because of the stories told that day, I'm evolving to be just a little bit more like him. A friend once shared with me, after losing their father, to whom they were very close, that having someone that you love dearly who is sewn into the fabric of your life and losing them is like having a Rubik's Cube that you've played with for your entire life, and all of a sudden a piece goes missing, and you can never replace that piece, and the cube will never be the same. My goal during Steve's illness and death was to handle it with some grace and some dignity, and to find some peace, and to not have any regrets. The peace, I believe, has simply been the acceptance that in life shit happens, right? On the macro level, people die every day. I get it. On the micro level, I couldn't fathom anything worse than losing my brother. I don't have any regrets, and much of that is because of the conversations that we had, right? I loved him, he loved me, we knew it. We had all the conversations we need to have. During his last 10 to 12 weeks of life, we still talked at least once a week. And he would say to me, Stacy, even though I'm sick, you have to move forward. You have to keep moving forward, right? There are people you care about, people who care about you, and you have a business to build and people to serve. And I would say to him, I am, Steve, I am. What he didn't know was that during those long winter months, I would often come home at night and lay on my couch in the dark. And I think in 3 months, I watched all 16 or 17 seasons of NCIS. But about the 4th time he said it to me, I said, Steve, I promise you that I will not get depressed and lay on my back and not live life because you got sick and or die. It was about 4 months after his funeral, and I was in my office, and I decided it was time to hire a new business coach. So I hired a man internal to our firm who had a very reflective style that I thought would work well with mine. And on our first call, he said to me, Stacy, tell me about how you got here, your why. Tell me how your business is going. So I shared with him about my first 3 years, and I shared that my brother had become ill and had died. And I told him that I didn't feel like I was running my business the way I wanted to or needed to. So at one point he said to me, play along with me if you will. I want to hear you say, I am confident. I want to hear you say, I am confident in me. And I said with great conviction, I am confident in me. And then he said, I want to hear you say, I am forgiven. And I couldn't say it. And I said to John, John, I don't know why. I cannot physically say those words. I am mentally exhausted. I just need to think about it. So I went home that night, and I didn't sleep well because it was on my mind. And I woke up the next morning, and I said, this is it. This is what I promised my brother. This is the crossroads. I promised him, this is the crossroads at which I have to take the leap of faith, right? That I can re-immerse myself into my business and in my life, and I can still grieve, and I won't forget him. But what I found was that I had to forgive myself for even wanting to, because what if it didn't work? But it did work. And he's in my heart every day. And in my office, I have things that remind me of him every day too. I have one of the big, beautiful barn pictures. I have the spring version. And when I look at it, I think of him and I smile and reminisce. And I know that he would be proud of me because I kept my promise. And his words come back to me. Of course you can, if you want to.
I'm not a fan of taking polls by raising hands for a few reasons. Number one, I don't like to admit things to my neighbors. Some things are just meant to be kept to myself. Number two, frankly, they just feel awkward. It kind of gives me a flashback to second grade. I didn't really like second grade. Third, most importantly, I have armpit anxiety. You heard me. Armpit anxiety. You can probably see it right here, right now. So to save us all from a little armpit anxiety, I'm still going to take a poll, but we're going to use our eyes instead. So I ask all of you, look at your device, ignore your people. I'm going to say 3 statements, and if any one of those resonates with you, I just want you to look at your device and blink 3 times. You ready? Here we go. Number 1, I am right where I should be in life, and I'm loving it. Number 2, I am so far behind, I'm not even close to where I think I should be. Number 3, I am right where I should be in life, but where's that happiness thing everybody talks about? I personally have blinked at all 3 of those statements at one point or another throughout my 40 years on Earth. Sometimes I felt I was right where I should be. Other days I felt I was so far behind. All I felt was overwhelm of envy, disappointment, and self-doubt. Now, anyone who knows me well knows I love a good metaphor and I love grocery shopping. That's me. I'm the weird lady in the store. Always have my cart, put my purse in, get out my Sharpie, always have a paper list. Always. And you think Sharpie might sound a little funny, but try it. You cruise off your list, it makes a beautiful line, and your list is as beautiful as it was when you started, except by the end of your grocery trip, you're done. I mean, it's the most gratifying feeling in the world. Now, I love going to the produce department after the wine and spirits department. Produce is my favorite. It's just so colorful, and I just love walking around with my cart, looking at the carrots and the kale and the bananas and the oranges. And who doesn't love a good apple pyramid? Am I right? Who doesn't go to Whole Foods or Hy-Vee, your grocer of choice, and just see that beautiful, polished, all one color green Granny Smith apple pyramid and just think, God, that's beautiful. Man, isn't that beautiful? Now, this is the point where I pull out that life's grocery list that has also been in my purse as long as I was old enough to carry a purse, which for me was about age 6. I was one of those girls. So my life's grocery list had bachelor's degree. Yeah, okay, got one of those. Graduate degree, MBA. Yeah, got one of those. Husband, finally. I mean, after 30 years of waiting, finally had myself one of those. House, check. Some strategic career moves, check, check. Pregnancy, excellent, right on schedule. It was not only my hit list of what to do in my adult life, but when to do it. I mean, Kyle and Kara Carrot over here had the perfect house, the family, 2.5 kids, nice car in the driveway. All right, everything looks great over there. They're happy, so it's got to be right, right? Right, okay. So about 18 months into my marriage, we had suffered 2 miscarriages, and things weren't going so great on the relationship front. So I find myself back in the grocery store in front of that beautiful Granny Smith apple pyramid, and I just had that feeling. You know the feeling. First one was the gut feeling, that nagging thing of just something that you know to do that's right. But when you're standing in front of the apple pyramid, it kind of feels like that forbidden fruit kind of feeling, like don't you just want to grab that one on the bottom row and just yank it, even though you know everything's going to fall? I did that. I did something in my entire Catholic life I never thought I would ever do. I got divorced. I grabbed that apple, yanked it, and shit came falling down. Took a bite of the apple, It was a Granny Smith. Y'all know Granny Smiths? They're tart, they're sour. So unless you dress them up and put a lot of sugar on them, they're total crap. I built my life out of Granny Smith apples. Didn't even know I was doing it. So my sidekick Cart had left me and is out of control, about to hit a toddler, realized that my life's grocery list is on fire over in aisle 5, and I'm sitting here in a pile of crapples. Now what was I supposed to do? All I could think of was, what the fork? What the fork was I doing here? Why the fork was I here? And what the fork did I do to get myself here? Guess what? My pile of crapples was really a pile of shoulds. Y'all, I've been shoulding all over myself my entire life. And the kicker was, I had no clue I was doing it. From dinner to my college major to what car I should get, I asked my trusted advisors about everything. And the truth was, if you asked me what my favorite apple was, until then, I probably would have told you Granny Smith. I didn't know. You know why? Because I'd never asked myself. So at this moment, I realized, well, shoot, I just pulled the apple out. Everything's collapsed. Well, now what do I do? Well, guess what? This is when the work begins. Work is work. And guess what? Nobody else can do it but you. So like any Iowa-raised Midwestern gal, I pulled up my pink rubber boots, grabbed a shovel, and got to work. And what did that work look like exactly? Well, most of it just looked like asking myself first. It took me a while to wean myself from my trusted advisors, but I learned that asking myself both before and after talking to my advisors was really the kicker. That had been the problem. So trusting myself and turning inward looked like falling madly in love with a man who has more gray hair than my dad and is 16 years older than me. You can imagine the shitting. Trusting myself, taking judgment in stride, and choosing that guy was the best thing I ever did. If I'd said, I shouldn't even go out on a date with this guy. He's older, he's divorced, oh my God, he has kids. Ugh. If I'd done that, I'd be missing out on Hallmark Channel kind of love. Trusting myself looks like doing a career 180 after building my career from age 19. I'm a food professional. I have been a food professional for over 20 years. Let me tell you, it is fascinating, it is fun, it's tasty, and I'm really good at it. But I'm good at a lot of things. Brute mental force, determination, and a can-do attitude will take you as far as you want it to take you. But what those things can't do is kill or silence that feeling inside of knowing that you're meant for more. If I'd said, I've just spent so much time in the food business, I should just stay put, that's the right thing to do. Karen, this 401k is killer. Sticking around, even though I'm miserable, sticking around for the 401k, totally worth it. Don't you think? Don't you think, Karen? If I'd done that, I'd be a caged cheetah, playing small, not using my God-given talents to speak, coach, and inspire people to stop shooting themselves. I learned all I needed was permission. Permission to take a detour off of the perfectly popular paved path I had spent my entire adult life creating. Permission to explore, to take the road less traveled, the one that's always bumpy, mostly uncomfortable, but always aligned with possibility and purpose. I learned all I needed was permission. And who gave me that permission?
The heart and humor you just saw did not come without significant effort. I want to thank and acknowledge all of our speakers today for their tireless commitment and dedication to themselves. And I want to thank you for joining us on our journey. And I want to end by addressing what I would consistently say to those parents who didn't think that they had it in them to perform publicly or were hesitant to incorporate speaking support and storytelling into their professional lives. I would say to them, as I say to you, absolutely you can do what they do. And not only can you do what they do, but your families, businesses, and communities need you to invest in your communication skills, speak up confidently, and consistently share your personal and professional stories. The next session of the Mastermind starts soon, which means that our next storytelling and speaking showcase is only 2 months away. Join us to ignite your confidence, establish connections, and build a lifelong habit of effectively and powerfully speaking up. Find out more at speakupstories.com. Thank you, and have a great evening.
Speak Up Stories exists to empower others to present powerfully in their personal and professional lives. We provide a performance platform to achieve message clarity and speaking confidence. Through preparation, teamwork, unconventional activities, and laughter-filled speaking experiences. Join us for our showcase of stories, speeches, and performances, and find out how you can share your mind and heart and speak up your story. Speak Up Stories exists to empower others to present powerfully in their personal and professional lives. We provide a performance platform to achieve message clarity and speaking confidence. Through preparation, teamwork, unconventional activities, and laughter-filled speaking experiences. Join us for our showcase of stories, speeches, and performances, and find out how you can share your mind and heart and speak up your story. Speak Up Stories exists to empower others to present powerfully in their personal and professional lives. We provide a performance platform to achieve message clarity and speaking confidence. through preparation, teamwork, unconventional activities, and laughter-filled speaking experiences. Join us for our showcase of stories, speeches, and performances, and find out how you can share your mind and heart and speak up your story. Speak Up Stories exists to empower others to present powerfully in their personal and professional lives. We provide a performance platform to achieve message clarity and speaking confidence. Through preparation, teamwork, unconventional activities, and laughter-filled speaking experiences. Join us for our showcase of stories, speeches, and performances, and find out how you can share your mind and heart and speak up your story. Speak Up Stories exists to empower others to present powerfully in their personal and professional lives. We provide a performance platform to achieve message clarity and speaking confidence. Through preparation, teamwork, unconventional activities, and laughter-filled speaking experiences. Join us for our showcase of stories,